Hi, Tim.
Hi, Cass. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Glad you're able to get on.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Last meeting, you talked about a community energy report.
Yeah.
Where can I find that?
Um, that would be on Excel's website, I believe. It's kind of hard to navigate. I think I have the link right here. I can um send it to you.
Okay.
Yeah, they do these reports every year. But so the most recent one they have for us is 2024.
It's not bad.
Yeah. Um, so it's in a spreadsheet format, but then they have like a more do you want me to email these or send them in the chat?
Could you email it?
Yes, I can email. Um, so they have one that's like a spreadsheet of like kind of a compilation of all the data. Um, and then the other one is like a snapshot dashboard that has less information but like looks cleaner. So I'll send both.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, well, while we're waiting, I'm going to go grab something to eat real quick.
Yeah, no worries.
Hello.
Hi, Matthew.
Hi, Cassidy.
Nice to see you. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, nice to see you as well.
I am just finishing up some dinner, but everyone should be jumping on shortly.
Cool. Great. Yeah, I just thought I'd come a little bit early, get
Totally.
the tech stuff figured out.
Yeah, do you need to present or share your screen?
I think so. I have something to present.
Right. Do you want to
But
test that, make sure it works so that I
yeah,
see if I need to do something?
Yep. My docking station has been a little finicky recently, so things are getting unplugged and then plugged back in.
Totally.
But can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yep.
pretty well?
Yeah,
Okay.
for me it's good.
Okay. Okay. Cool. I'll try sharing now. That should
Cool.
I
work.
see that.
Yeah,
Yep, I
and
see your
then
screen.
if I do that, is it now the full screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Awesome.
Groovy.
Well, yep, we got 3 minutes. People usually jump on right at 6:45, so
Cool.
yeah, we'll see.
Well, I thought the agenda said 6:30. Maybe I didn't look at it close enough.
Oh, we usually start at 6:45. I don't know why it was that way before I came on. But
Okay.
you're just on top of it, Tim.
Microphone.
Tim, did you see that email from Melody that she sent just a few hours ago, I feel like, with the goals?
Yeah, I was able to download the goals.
Okay, awesome. Want to make sure. I think she'll do a more explanation of them when we get to that item.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew, I was reading your little the spiel in the email. And I saw that you did the Western the environmental program there. Cool.
Yeah, sorry. My mic.
No, you're good. And then it said that you worked on a Netherland project, and I was curious. I don't know that I've heard about that one.
Yeah, Erica would probably know more of who it was delivered to or where it could be found. It was, let me think, when was that? I think that was fall, was that fall of 2021? Maybe it was fall or spring of 22 is one of those. It was 22, yeah, it was spring of 22. We used
Okay.
ICLEI to put, oh, hey, Erica. Yeah.
Good.
Just talking, Cassidy was just asking about the climate adaptation project that we did in grad school for Netherland. Do you remember, like, was that delivered?
It's definitely made it to Cass and the mayor and some other board of trustees, but I don't know if we ever presented it to them. Because I don't think it was like an officially adopted document or anything like that.
That was in 2021.
Right.
Or 2022, sorry.
22 spring.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it was like, yeah, maybe that sounds right. Like, but it probably wasn't officially adopted. Maybe we didn't do the, you know, the full process. It was like, I think we had like 6 weeks, right? It was very compressed. It was like, here's the software. Now in 6 weeks, deliver a climate adaptation plan, like, oh, quick.
And
yeah, that's quick.
yeah, and Cass at the time, we didn't have any money, right? And so we were able to get access through the program for this ICLEI software that would otherwise cost us a lot of money to be like ICLEI members and then have access to it. But the software is gone. I don't think it exists anymore, but it was super
Okay.
cool. It like brought down resolution to 6.5 kilometer grid, but
Wow.
not everywhere was available in the US, but Netherlands was.
Huh.
It was really neat, I thought.
Yeah, I'll have to look for that on our maybe Google Drive, see if it's on there.
Yeah, if not, I can send it to you.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
And where was your program? I thought you said Western.
Yeah, in Gunnison.
What is it, the Harvard of the West,
My
Jim?
alma mater, yeah, Harvard of the West.
I've never heard that.
Thanks for being here, Matthew. It's good to see you.
You too.
It's also good to see the rest of you too.
Yeah.
Do you
But-
have a baby?
Who are you talking to? Jack? Yeah.
Face. And they're screaming, so he doesn't want to unmute.
Oh, I didn't realize I was muted. 2 babies. I had 2 babies.
Congratulations. That's totally
Yeah.
fair.
Congratulations.
They're down now, so for the moment.
I think
Yeah,
we're
I bet
just
I'm
waiting
on
for
the night
Melody.
shift, so
I think we're just waiting for Melody, and I've not gotten a text from her. But Rich will not be able to make it. Ty is no longer on the board of trustees, so he is not our liaison, and I don't know if they're gonna try and like fill that position, or I don't know what's
They
going
will.
on there. Okay.
it'll be a special appointment for the remainder of his term. John?
They're going to be speaking about it tomorrow night, and then we'll know more. But I think that's probably what will happen.
Got it. Will
He
we
was
have a
up in April, so he's sorry.
It's a virtual thing. He was up in April.
The new person has to run in April no matter what. He wasn't, but they'll have to run just because that's how the law works.
Got it. And then will we have a liaison temporarily?
That is part of the discussion tomorrow night. So we'll probably have a good idea. I could follow. Well, I guess I could tell Cass and she could send an update maybe on Wednesday.
Yeah, I can do that. Well, if Melody doesn't jump on, which I want to give her a couple more minutes, and then Rich is not attending and he's the co-chair, we'll have to have someone else jump in and run the meeting. But I assume Melody is coming because she sent out the goals sheet, or information in that email.
Cass,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm in my car. Do you
Okay.
guys have quorum? I'm not sure if you do or not.
We have 4. Sorry. Melody is saying she's trying to call in, but the meeting ID is not correct. So let me get her that.
Modern technology. I have Melody on the phone.
Okay.
Melody, we can give you some more time though.
If you want to do a roll call for me, we can call to order at 6:50.
Okay. Roll call. We have Melody on the phone. We've got Tim, Jack, and Erica. So we have quorum. We can start the meeting at 6:50.
And I'll try and get Melody the call-in information.
So I believe the first thing on the agenda is Matthew. Is he here?
He is, yeah. Should we jump
Yep.
in?
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. So it might just be me, but on my screen, I don't see anybody anymore. So
Oh,
I can go, but I won't be able to see your lovely faces. So wonder.
okay. I
Should I
I
just
think
should
if
I
you want to
leave and
share
come
your,
back?
maybe, I mean,
Oh.
I can see everyone's faces. Is anyone else
Okay.
having that issue? No?
No.
Oh, it's probably something on my end. Yeah, let me try sharing and see if that like prompts
Okay.
it to change. Oh, yep. Wait. Oh, that is funny. Hold on. Sorry, I know we started late. Can I just leave and come right back? Sorry
Yeah,
about that.
that's fine.
I'll be right back.
So I can brag about Matthew for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
He is the biochar guru, and I'm so excited to learn from him. So he ended up doing his project at Western on biochar and then doing some really cool research. And now he'll like tell us more about it. But he's been able to work with a lot of the pilot programs kind of throughout the state and then the country as well. So just wanted to drop that little nugget. But when he said he was willing to come tonight, I was just really selfishly very excited.
Hey, sorry about that. I mean, I use Teams all the time at work, and this has never happened. So it's just like our destiny for now to have this a little bit of road speed bumps. So okay, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great, awesome. So hello, I'm Matthew Eshed. Thanks to Erica for inviting me to give this talk on biochar. Talk and facilitated conversation. It's let's say like a little after 8:50. What time should I will we wrap my segment? Or 8:50 Eastern.
20 minutes, Matthew. So
like 10 after. Like 10 after the hour. Cool. So I think I'm here to kind of be like it's like an AMA, sort of like Ask Me Anything. I prepared some slides. They were mainly to give some conversation support rather than necessarily me like directing information at you. So I sort of designed these slides to give context so that we can then discuss about how this is relevant or what the questions are. So like to get started, I wonder like what's people's familiarity like does anybody consider themselves an expert or is anybody like, yeah, I know all about biochar, or are people like I don't know anything at all, or somewhere in the middle?
I know a
Kind of in
little
the
bit.
middle, a little bit.
I've been exposed to biochar companies a fair amount, but never close enough to get into the science.
Okay.
Tim, what about you?
Me? I know a little.
So Tim worked for the EPA for a long time. What's your background with biochar? Like, how did it interface with your work? If you don't mind sharing a little bit.
Well, I know we did a pilot project up near Aspen to just use it as a revegetation tool. So we laid down, the idea was to put some biochar, mix it with the soil, and hopefully enhance growth over, because it was a cap for a mine tailings pile.
Hmm.
And boy, that was a long time ago. And I'm not sure that the results were very good, but again, that was probably 15 years ago, and I think the science has probably advanced since then.
Yeah, definitely. There's one image that came up a lot during my graduate studies at Western. I just did the MEM there between 2021 and 2023, and I focused on biochar, also PFAS, and they intersect, but I wasn't necessarily focusing on the intersection. That would sort of be a next step of potential research. But the Hope Mine in Aspen, there's a picture of the biochar application there where there's this hillside that's pretty barren prior to the biochar application, and then after the application it's all green. So it's just like a very clear before and after that's like, oh, okay, I think I have somewhat of an idea of what might happen if we add the biochar. So okay, so biochar fits in, it's one of the many things that can be done for environmental stewardship, to address climate change, to reduce emissions, to increase sequestration, both in sequestering the stable carbon as well as increasing biological and ecological activity in the soil to support water holding capacity and enhance root growth and increase the size of agricultural crops. Of course, all these things are in context dependent. Environment matters, crop matters, climate zone matters, and it's also made from waste. So any basically woody biomass feedstock can be made into biochar from including sewage sludge, which we wouldn't say is woody biomass, but things like nutshells and trees, wood. This scanning electron microscope images of biochar are really cool. So I don't know how many other pictures I have in the slide, so I wanted to start off with this picture. I didn't include in the slide what material this is, but you can see the porosity and then the electrical characteristics of it are sort of its main purpose as a material. So it's charcoal that's made to absorb things or bind to microorganisms or to certain chemicals, certain molecules. They bind to it and they stick to it, as opposed to charcoal, which is made for fuel. Biochar is made for that, or it can be used as an aggregate. And then also in sort of the work that I'm doing these days, it's being used specifically to somewhat permanently store and sequester carbon. So it's a CDR, or carbon dioxide removal technology. And so my recent work has been on biochar carbon accreditation. And so I kind of know a lot about the whole space. So on this sort of intro slide, I also included what you might find at different ends of the spectrum on how biochar is made and used, where the in woods mobile biochar production looks like this really nice paper on the top left that a few people I actually know. I haven't met Jim Archuleta, but I know the other 4 people came out with this really nice document all about these different mobile kiln uses, where you bring it into the woods and make the biochar on site. And then down here, this is just one example of the very interesting space of designing these industrial kiln pyrolysis units that meet all of the emissions requirements and energy requirements, so that the biochar that's produced is a zero emissions technology, so that then based on that, it can be also calculated as a negative emissions technology, and those negative emissions are what are sold as the credits.
Matthew, just a quick question while you have this slide up. So that bottom left image is my
Yeah.
understanding of what the city of Minneapolis is installing as an industrial
that.
urban biochar process.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and this kind of biochar making, there are protocols for generating credits from these under the artisan biochar methodologies, and these are, so this is an industrial system. So so in giving this talk, like especially in just 20 minutes or so, I definitely can't get to everything. So I'm trying to give information that will give people sort of arm people to navigate more and know where there might be an opportunity for it. So why negative emissions? Because it's a forcing downward of the emissions, global emissions and local emissions. It helps bring it down in addition to emissions reductions and ecosystem support and conservation. So I tried to sort of chunk the whole system down, and these are some of sort of one of the outputs. This is a lot of what I do in my work as a systems engineer in this space, is trying to sort of like break things down into pieces. Each one of these is sort of a black box, and then we can sort of open the black box, and if it's working, then we can say, okay, well, this is just, it works. So yeah, I see Jack, you raise your hand.
Yeah. So can you talk me through like relative production? Like I see the processing, right, and pyrolysis and gasification there.
Yeah.
Are those like adjacent parts of an equation? Like you are running a process that is either leaning more towards pyrolysis or more towards gasification, and I would assume biochar is getting produced from the pyrolysis leaning equation. Is that the basics?
Yes. Yeah, it can be produced in both. This is sort of getting into like the very technical of it. The gasification could probably be left off. It just is about the temperature that it's made at, the amount of time that it's in the unit, and then the proportion of gas or oil that's coming out. Is sort of like with gasification, you're going to get a lot of gas. With pyrolysis, you might get more oil. But either way, you're tuning the process to make biochar, or you could have co-products. You could make energy at the same time.
So it's a bio, like when you say oil, what are we talking about?
It's a good question. It's just called bio oil, or it's just the oil that like comes out of the biomass, like the wood. The wood has oils in it, so they come out in the process.
Okay.
So
And
Matt,
is that typically combusted?
The oils are could be combusted, or they could be collected and then refined and then sold as a co-product.
Okay.
I'm not clear on how it gets to zero or negative emissions. Is that through the gasification and getting the energy out of the gas?
That is part of it. Yes, that's part of. So we do life cycle assessment to calculate the overall CO2 equivalence of the process, and we use ISO 1440 and 1444 based life cycle assessments. And let's see. So in making these credits, so I'm very focused on the credit world. There's like whole world outside of just credits. Credits are just one sort of piece of the puzzle. And the credit registries, they have requirements for how the greenhouse gas is calculated. And then when the project is submitted for credits, then the LCA, the life cycle assessment, and the statement, the greenhouse gas emission statement that's made, are verified and checked. So that's sort of how the claim is made. And if you're able to recycle your gas, you can put it through an electric generator to power the facility. We'll calculate all of that. So like we'll take the facility's bills of their utility statements, how much electricity or gas or diesel they've used, and then we use emissions factors to calculate the carbon footprint of the use of those resources.
Okay. but it's cycling the gas that gets you to that low emissions number. Or
Yeah.
negative.
Yeah, that helps. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So these credits, these registries, they're relatively new. These are the registries here on the right that have biochar protocols, and they're relatively new. Like Isometric, Puro only came out with their first biochar protocol in 2019, I think. Isometric didn't exist before 2021. WBC has existed for a long time. That's from Europe. FARA is a little older. Rainbow's brand new. Climate Action Reserve is a little older. So these they're all organized under these criteria, which are aiming to have these be very high quality, described as high quality credits. And so these are factors that go into the approval of the credits. Like they have to be additional, so the project can't have happened without the funding of the biochar credits. If the project's able to be financed without the credits, then it can't get the credits. So there's sort of, that's why it's like it I don't know how to say this in only a minute or two. So apologies if I'm not describing it perfectly clearly. But this, I'm sort of showing this to just sort of give a window, like sort of a peek under the hood of how we're assessing projects. This is to give some context for all of the different CDR methods that this is just under one of the registries, Isometric. They have a lot of scientists. If you look at their website, they have like 20 PhDs on their team, and they've written protocols for all of these carbon dioxide removal pathways. So it's a really expanding and expansive space where in 2018, maybe you might have only heard of direct air capture, but there's really so many pathways, and I'm focusing on the biochar. And then in terms of storage, these three at the top are biochar specific, agricultural soils or abandoned mine lands soils. I expect to see biochar storage in Mineland's proto storage module. I wouldn't be surprised if that comes around. And then in concrete and building materials. And then these are all these other carbon storage modules and rule sets that all exist. And the different registries each sort of publish their own rules about these different things. So that adds to the complexity of starting up a biochar facility like Minneapolis has done, or is in the process of doing, is sort of getting all the ducks in the row of the machinery and then the financing and economics, and that is where these credits come into play, is on the finance side. So here's another sort of like very high level, like 10,000 foot level of thing, where if you're thinking about creating a biochar project, these are kind of some of the key things that you're going to need to have sort of figured out. Where's the feedstock coming from? So like entities that have a lot of feedstock are very well suited to make biochar because they just have basically infinite feedstock coming in. And they might sell it as mulch, but there's sort of a limit on how much mulch, the size of the mulch market. Yeah, Erica.
If it's okay with the rest of the board, I would advocate to give you some more time because I think we have it, but I want to make sure that works for Jack and Tim and Melody. We already texted a little bit though.
I have 2 taskmasters that are going to yank me at some point. But until they do, I'm yours.
Yeah, Matthew, keep going. I know you skipped some slides to get here, so we can wait another 10 minutes. Is that okay? Then we can do some Q&A.
Yeah, sure. I think that should be more than enough. I didn't feel like I skipped slides. I didn't really intend to like read through all the stuff, that would be too much. Because then but thank you. So I think that 10 more minutes should be enough, including Q&A, I think. Feedstock supply, and if you don't have the feedstock yourself, then if you're in an agricultural area and let's say there's a lot of nut processors and they have these mountains and mountains of nut shells that are considered a waste, maybe they're spread on the fields or just burnt, big piles on the farm that's just combusted, then you would have agreements with them where they would supply the feedstock, and then the impacts of if that feedstock was going for another purpose and then now it's going to be used for biochar, what's the impact of that not being available there? Those things are all go into the sort of like if you want to do the whole accreditation approach, like Minneapolis is doing, and many companies are doing, and that's so that you can sell the credits to companies like Microsoft or wherever the demand is for these credits. They want to buy like $100 million of carbon credits.
Yeah, by 2030.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Oh, they just have really aggressive
Yeah.
goals, and they're mostly interested in projects with a high level of maturity and volume.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. So there, and then you can go to the registries. They publish who the buyers are. So if you're at all curious about who's buying the credits, there that information is all public on the registries. So like these Isometric Puro, CAR, Rainbow's sort of the newest entrant to the space. And then of course the data, you know, just how much is coming in, has it been tested, has it been sent to a lab, which lab is it being sent to, how are the facilities emissions being tracked, what's the embodied emissions of all of the cars and machines and that are used in the weight of all of the materials that are used for the building, the concrete, the metal, all of those things are calculated into the embodied emissions. So there's a lot of information that's getting put together so that then a claim can be made that this amount of biochar, like let's say per ton of biochar, this is how many sequestration credits are associated with each ton of biochar. There's all these methods to come up with that multiplier. And
So
each of the
you're prorating like the embodied carbon of the production facility
you're amortizing it.
over like a lifespan dependent on the facility type. So
Yeah.
somewhere between 10 and 50 years, depending
Yeah.
on scale.
Yep, exactly. Yep. And then the technologies, this is sort of what I touched on at the beginning, is these different pyrolysis technologies. And it's a space that's growing because it's an old space, but it's being given a new application. Old meaning material handling, gasification, drying, industrial charcoal plants exist. Tons of drying and separating machines exist and are extremely mature. But then applied to this specific task of making biochar is where then the technology readiness level might be less than an 8 or 9, which is like the most mature. That might be more like a 5 or 6. And then these different methodologies, this is, we're talking in the context of the voluntary carbon market, but then there's also these different compliance markets that might exist around the world now or in the future. So right now, all of these registries are really playing in the voluntary carbon market space. So there's a whole thing about the VCM, the voluntary carbon market, and the, I guess, the regulated markets. Life cycle assessment's a big piece of it, sort of knowing the science of pyrolysis and how to tune the machines, as well as the offtakes. And I'll get to that in a little bit. And then the economics of it all. The credits are a big part of the economics of how to make this work. I wanted to just give a screenshot. There's no simple way. I bet there's a simple way, but I didn't come up with it to sort of show all of the different facets of a biochar project. Sustainable development goals is a piece of it. How it's going to be used is a piece. So this is an interesting product because if it's being used to generate credits, because the buyer needs to report on how they're using the product. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know how many other products there are like that.
Matthew, tell me more, because I think
Mhm.
it has so many benefits, right? Agricultural, soil health, water conservation,
Yeah.
all of these things. Like, do one of those techniques or applications have more value than the other?
So the biggest concern is reversal. So they want to know that the biochar that's being sold and there's a carbon removal claim that goes along with it isn't being combusted, basically. So it can't be used as fuel. Then the claim wouldn't make any sense. It loses its validity. So they're asking for things like if it's being used in agricultural soils, when was it buried? Where, when and where. Upload a photograph. They need the invoices of when it was delivered. The buyer needs to sign a claim that they're not going to make any carbon removal claims along with it. It's sort of like selling a regulated product. It feels new to me. I bet that there's some analog for some other product that's out there, but yeah. Does that answer your question? Cool. So again, another one of these kind of high level lists. Again, with one of these projects, these are sort of the main stakeholders that come to the table. There's the entity that has the feedstock. There's the entity that's producing the biochar. In the credit world, they're called the supplier. They supply the credits. Then there's the off-taker of the biochar itself, which is separate from the off-taker of the credits. And then how is the financing done? These plants can cost $1 million or more. So there's this interesting thing that I don't really fully understand. My boss, my sort of business partner in doing the biochar accreditation would have so much more to say about this interplay between the demand for the biochar itself and the demand for the credits, that there's said that there's not enough demand for biochar, but that by the producers, but then the market is saying that there isn't enough supply of biochar. So it's sort of like there's something funky going on right now with that. And I don't claim to fully understand it. I just have heard that it exists.
What's the most common use of biochar at present?
Agricultural soils. The most on the isometric registry, which is one of the newer and sort of more like tech modern registries, the majority of the credits that have been sold are under which one? I think it's this one, bio oil storage in salt caverns. I believe that the majority of the credits on isometric have actually been sold in this, which isn't biochar. This is something else that I'm not an expert in. But the adoption is a big part of the conversation of biochar. So the like education piece, the big part of the requirements for Puro, let's see if I can find it on here, is to do social going out into the community and educating people about what this is about. That's actually a requirement of getting the credits registered, because expanding people's understanding of where this fits in as a piece, and then it gets very technical when you get into using it in concrete. If you want to use it in roads and in buildings, it needs to be accredited by the civil engineering groups and tested, and needs to be quite mature in order for the adoption to really start. So we'll be seeing that grow over the coming years.
For agriculture, is the main advantage moisture retention?
Yeah, it has several advantages. Water holding capacity. It helps to so it has different effects on different crops. So it definitely adds aeration to the soil. There's so much science about it. Like basically any question that you have, like how does biochar affect this crop in these soils, and you can find many studies that show if it does or doesn't have a positive effect, or if it's been found to have a positive effect. There's really interesting work in the growth of the fungal world. You can see by these pores that there's so much space for the mycelium to grow, so it can like create this living layer in depleted soils. And there's tons of research and studies on this.
I just sent an email with the CSU extension link, and we did tour during the Recycle Colorado workshop in June. We toured that facility, and it's an injection test plot. And I want to say he was talking irrigation reduction of like 25% at least. Really fascinating stuff. And it was a new technology. So it was a non-tilled area, right? They weren't just like top dressing it or like putting it in initially with a till of that land, but actually like injecting it similar to like what golf courses do to see if that could be used. But obviously it has to be pretty small particles to be able to move through the water like that. Yeah, there's so much cool stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's those are all the slides. Does there any other questions come up? Like how is there anywhere in Netherland or in Boulder County that this has come up as a possibility, whether for forest management or supporting the operations at the landfill or any areas of degraded soils where you might be looking to do some restoration where biochar might fit?
I'd be interested to hear if any of our pot growers are using it.
Love
I
a high
would.
margin industry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I'm more curious about the like the basic economics of where this technology is right now. I think starting with the supply side and understanding where biochar falls in the stack of highest and best use of products, and then working through to the offtake side. So like understanding what the value streams are coming off the back end, because it sounds like CDR credits, probably some revenue streams from whatever you're selling it for. So like soil amendments or probably soil amendments, it sounds like. And then you have, it sounds like there's a series of co-products, oil. I assume it's exothermic, so you're generating energy at the production. So like understanding how that whole, call it a Sankey diagram, stacks up. That's kind of the filter I put on put on these things, right? Like I think it's tempting to think of biochar as a waste of value type proposition, and those are always tricky because they solve the a successful waste of value endeavor increases the value of the waste. And then you solve your own, like you become, you reduce your ability to have like really affordable supply often. So those are the kinds of questions I'd be interested in.
Are you like are you in the space of biomass? Are you in the biomass space?
I've worked for one company that has a forest product to energy application. So like vaguely in the space, right? Like it's a challenge. There's haven't been a lot of successful large scale demonstrations of these kinds of things. So like getting that off the ground is challenging.
Yeah.
And like, like gasification can point to coal gasification, biochar can point to charcoal, right? It's similar process, different output, different optimization. But the economics seem to operate differently when you're when you're looking at a distributed rather than a concentrated feedstock. Although I guess charcoal is more similar, right? Like it's more distributed than a coal seam in Wyoming.
Yeah.
It sounds
Yeah.
like the concrete uses is not very well developed yet, but I'm guessing the idea there is you increase the porosity of the concrete, and then and then infiltrating air can the CO2 can bond with the biochars. Is that the thinking?
I think that's part of it. I think there's the simpler thinking than that is that it's a replacement for aggregate, but then the next level is how does this change the performance of the concrete and the concrete making process?
Is biochar like structurally like quite dissimilar from charcoal then? It's got a much higher compression strength.
That's a really good question. I
Yeah.
actually can't really answer that question
It's
right
okay.
now. That's a really good question though. Yeah. Super good question.
Because I know, yeah, I would have assumed it was like a like add-in for cementitious materials like a fly ash or what's the GGBFS. It's a bit too long since I've dug into that. But aggregate is higher volume, so
Yeah. Yeah, totally, totally. If there were some construction engineers and civil engineers in here, they'd be able to speak to that with a lot more knowledge than I could. Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah. And I know there's Biochar now is in Boulder County, and they've been in the game for a while, but there's going to be a lot more of these popping up in the coming years. So if you think that you might have a need for the biochar itself, start putting some feelers out there to see what exists. If you see large supplies of feedstock, you can, see if they're interested in making biochar. It might be possible for them.
We're much
Yeah.
more likely. I mean, we do have like right, we have mines in the area.
Yeah.
The largest closest mine to my house closed off for some kind of work that looks like a remediation or mitigation project. But we have a lot of supply, right? We're right next to the national forest. Finding good offtake for slash and woody biomass is, there's probably more than we could manage right now. So that's not a bad place to think about.
Yeah. And I
Matthew,
know
do you
that.
know
Anecdotally, I have produced a bunch of slash in my backyard. It's like sitting on my driveway and waiting for it to get taken away. So like, there's
Yeah, you could have a little biochar kiln in your house. Make your own biochar.
I don't. I suspect
Sorry, I just
that
saw
would
that.
not be very exciting for my insurer on a residential scale.
I just saw that Bloomberg, City of Boulder was awarded one of 10 Bloomberg kind of pilot biochar projects in 2001 or 2021, excuse me. I know Boulder County has also looked into this a little bit. Do you know anything about that, Matthew?
I don't, since I've been away from the area for a few years. I don't know actually what the developments have been. I know that there was that that economic support to make the thing happen, but I didn't hear anything about actually what happened.
Any other questions for Matthew? It's now very late on the East Coast.
Matthew, I didn't realize you were on the East Coast.
Yeah. Oh, I'm cool. I love Colorado, so it's great to be with my people. But I'm in Woodstock, New York.
Oh, sweet.
Speaking of wood. But I was just trying to find the website. I'm forgetting the name of the company, but there's a company in Utah that's using a model where they're going into the woods and they're chipping the slash, and then they're bringing it out of the woods to a biochar plant that they have down below, and then they've sort of been able to work that system. Who knows how, profitable they really are? Maybe they are. Hopefully they are. That would be amazing. But that's at least one application that I've seen in the area of merging the in-woods forestry oversupply situation, fuel oversupply situation, to the industrial biochar production and then credit generation down off the mountain. I haven't seen that too much, but I saw this one project in Utah that is doing that. So that was really cool to see. I learned about that at the North American Biochar Conference this year, which was in
Awesome.
Minneapolis. Yeah. Yeah. So thanks for having me. I hope this was educational and inspiring and energizing, and that people can sort of know a little bit more about what this thing is, so that when it's mentioned, it's not so mystical.
Thanks so much.
Matthew.
Yeah,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah.
Really appreciate
Yeah, feel free to contact me. I think y'all have my email. I can put it in the chat too. Oh, chat is turned off. So
I just sent an email with the CSU info, and I CC'd you, so everybody should have your email. Thanks so much, Matthew.
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Take
leave
care.
the meeting now. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Matthew.
See ya.
All right, awesome. Moving on, the next thing on the agenda is a pie update.
I am assuming by the silence that might be on me.
Yeah, Jack, either you or me can take it.
Cassie, I'd love if you can take this because my
Yeah.
memory processing is not going so well right now.
You're totally fine. Yeah, so we can keep it brief. But we met last week. It was Britt, myself, Jack, and then members of the Pi Energy Action team. And we talked about basically coming up with a list of people and contacts for our workshop, which is going to come up in January. We haven't decided on a date. If there are dates that don't work for you, if you could just email those to me, and then I can try and not schedule it on one of those dates. It will not be on a weekend. But the idea behind the workshop is to have SAB members present, as well as representatives from the community. So business owners, real estate owners, residents, renters, people representing that kind of subset of Nederland residents. We're trying to get someone from Boulder County, Boulder Valley School District, town staff as well. And that's basically, we'll have Pi leading the workshop, coming up with, what are priorities for an energy action plan. And we still haven't come up with like an agenda for that. But Jack is on that team, and I know Melody and Rich have both offered to fill in. So we do have that like SAB connection there. If there's anyone in particular that you think should be on the energy or should be at these workshops, please also email, reach out, tell me now. And I can definitely get in touch with them. If you have a contact for them, that would be great. But just for some ideas, we're going to try and get Ron Mitchell, someone from Tebow Properties. So we have a contact, Dylan. We're going to try and have the grocery store owners, someone from Eldora. And then I think the way that we're going to try and have resident representatives is making a survey that people can fill out if they want to attend, kind of saying why they would be a good representative for residents, for renters, whatever the subset is, homeowners, landlords, and then we'll select 2 or 3 of them to attend the workshop, because we don't want the workshop to be 50 people, because that would be too large to manage. But that is our idea for kind of having resident representation at the workshop itself. And also it'll be easier for scheduling if we have fewer people. Does anyone have any questions about all of that, or any suggestions for people to reach out to?
Yes, I would recommend the middle high and elementary school. Having
Yes.
representatives on the ground there,
Okay.
and Gita or Sarah if they're available.
Yeah, I talked to Gita about it.
And then what's the expectations of the participants? Is it just a one and done, or are they going to like review the draft strategies? Like, what's that?
So there's going to be 2 workshops, and the expectation is for them to attend both of them. I think the first workshop will happen mid to late January, and the second one, March or April would be my best guess. But we haven't come up with dates for that yet. And yes, I think ideally, we would bring back, like, once we have feedback from them, and then we also will put out a survey to the community so anyone can answer. And after we get all of that and compile it and create a draft, I think the idea would be to bring it back to them at the second workshop, and get their feedback on what is included in the plan.
And then I feel like I should know this, but what is the plan? Is it focused on like all things energy related? Is it going to have a focus on EVs, building electrification? Like, what are you envisioning?
So it's energy related for sure. What we have been talking about at SAB is like a 24/7 carbon-free energy plan. PI wants, I believe, to do a plan that is measurable, and from what we've heard from them, you cannot measure 24/7 carbon-free energy. And so I don't know if that will be the actual like metric that the plan uses. So we haven't, I think, Jack's laughing. He can expand on that.
It's all
if he
good.
wants.
No. Sorry. I did not hear that from them. 24/7 carbon-free energy is measurable. It's just hard, and there's not a like plug-in, like figuring out how to measure it is its own entire scope. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
I just like this is yeah, it reminds me of some of our previous conversations with partners in energy. But that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
No, it's okay.
disrupt Cassidy.
That's okay. Yeah, I think it might be like it's not measurable within the scope that they can meet. Yeah, we haven't really had that like conversation about what's going to be in the plan yet. I will say it has mostly been about identifying stakeholders to have at the workshop.
Just from my memory of the action plan workshops that we went through in 2019, I think it was, basically I'm sure there'll be some sort of reduction in kilowatt hours based on increased energy efficiency, that there'll be some sort of call to installing solar. I think mostly we're talking about energy and building efficiency. And I think it would be a good time to bring up electrification and what that could look like in that transition. So those are kind of the topics that are rolling around in my brain that would be compatible with Excel.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm able, go ahead.
No, sorry, I am likely out of the loop here, because I ducked out, and I'm just getting back. Do we have a formal scope of work with them for this?
Yes and no. We have an MOU.
Okay.
But I would say that it's not necessarily a scope of work. But
Really,
at,
really
Mhm.
broad terms, not topical, right?
hmm And
Okay.
I wrote those down, and I will send an email to Grace. Just she's our lead contact there, and I'll like let her know what SAB is saying, because I think our next meeting isn't until December, to like plan the agenda for it.
I think generally that's defined by the working group, that weekly or monthly call or whatever.
Okay.
Loosely they have certain deliverables, like doing the 2 workshops, facilitating the calls, and then coming up with a final plan that they'll present to us. But as far as what it all covers, I'm pretty sure that's up to us, as long as it flies with Excel because they're funding it all.
Yeah, and that's a major consideration, as we've found in the past. So that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yep.
There's a whole pie, not pie working group. Cass, I don't know if you've been invited to that. Okay.
No,
Make sure you get invited because it's a network of all the communities. And
it's
so
pie.
it's a pie, not pie. I'll make sure you get invited.
Okay, because I was part of some pie like group, like cohorts, and then I reached out about them, and they said that they weren't like being supported anymore, so they weren't meeting. But I reached out to Pi, so must not be Pi who's doing it.
The beneficial electrification group, that was through Pi, and that kind of merged into Dr. Cog. I don't know if that maybe was the
Okay.
group. I'll make sure. This is facilitated by Lakewood.
Okay. Yeah, no, I haven't heard about that.
Okay. Yeah. Because it's, Pi is working with so many communities and Excel territories. And so sometimes I think it's helpful to know what other communities are doing. And it's not something like Pi will bring that to the conversation, but sometimes I think it's helpful to like talk with those other communities. So,
Mhm.
And then, yeah, I need to refresh myself. Like we already have an energy action plan, right?
Yes, but it mostly was the one that the MANB team did. And so I believe this like updated one is because we're no longer just focusing on like 100% renewable energy. We wanted to focus on these like other topics.
Yeah, we have an energy action plan that Pi did for us. I think it was 2019, but I could be wrong. It could be 2018 or something like that. But
It's
that
pretty limited.
was, I think, just 3 years. So it's over and done with.
It was also pretty limited, like, so that plan was limited in scope. And as I understand it, that limitation in scope was a function of Pi's funding. it sounds like circling back to the 24/7 carbon-free energy comment, which I think what was one of the things that we were excited about getting Pi involved in for support for defining that. It sounds like we'll be facing similar limitation, potentially facing similar limitations in scope for a Pi engagement now, which is like there's a ton of work to do, but it's like just thinking about how we frame this so that it's clearly a component of the overall, like the overall goal related to energy, but not right because like as Melody like Melody listed off basically the kind of core components from the last one a few minutes ago, and it's like, okay, that's great, but that's not gonna, well, it won't push us forward it won't be sufficient to push us forward across the board in the directions we've been talking about over the last few months. So just recognizing that like we can scope Pi to be a subcomponent of that. And then that's a subcomponent of what we need to do on the whole. If that makes sense. I don't know. I'm extremely
Yeah,
tired. So
exactly.
this may not make sense.
No, it does. I think that's how we have to look at it. Basically, Pi has the ability to get us access to some of those large energy providers to get a truer picture of our data. And so continuing to work with them, that's one advantage. And then getting a more broken down set of numbers of solar rewards versus, renewable energy subscribers. Pi has better access to all of that data than we do. And so I think we determined, when we agreed to continue graduate support with Pi, that we need to use them for what we can and understand that there are going to be limitations because we want to go far above and beyond what Xcel is willing to sign off on. Any other questions for Cass on Pi or comments?
I was just gonna say, like, whatever Pi can do is great. Just let us know how we can help. It's amazing to have access to free consultants. So however we can make them work, they're a really skilled team. The rental group is amazing. So like Cass, just let it lean in, like let us know how we can help.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is we only meet for 30 minutes every other week, and I've been really busy with other things and things that aren't necessarily even in my job description, but it's a small town and you end up doing lots of things that aren't in your job description. And so I have honestly not talked about like the contents of the plan or the workshops with them. So I'm glad that we're discussing that now so I can pass it along.
Also guilty of that without the
Yeah.
excuse of supporting a small town.
Happens to all of us. I can give the zero waste subcommittee update though if there's nothing else.
Yeah, go ahead.
Cool. So this is really short because we had a meeting and only one person showed up. But we basically have the LED sign up and it's projecting messages. I went to the community Thanksgiving potluck event this past weekend. I went on Saturday when they were prepping food and Sunday, and I basically manned the waste bins and made sure people were dumping their food into a food bin so that we could bring it up to the compost unit at the transfer station. And with all the food from Saturday and Sunday, we composted 169 pounds of food. I don't know if they have composted food in the past and what those numbers look like. So I don't know how it compares, but it looked like a lot of food to me. And I was pretty happy that people were excited to separate that food from the trash. And we did collect, they had compostable plates and cups and silverware. And we did collect those because the Nate, the guy who like basically runs the kitchen for that event, he bought those hoping that they would be composted. I kind of told him the situation, but I've been trying to get in contact with Compost Colorado to see if they would take the compostable materials because I'm not sure of anywhere else that's close by that would take them. So I'm not sure if those will be composted or not. But I'm trying to follow up on that. The other thing, oh yeah, so there's the extended producer responsibility law that the Colorado Action Alliance, I think CAA, has, they have funding for it, for governments to do education and outreach. And I am going to learn more soon. And I have a meeting with Chandra from Boulder County Resource Conservation office, and I'm going to talk with her about what it looks like for us and if Boulder County would kind of handle our education and outreach, or if we can hopefully team up on that and kind of what the funding looks like. But I don't have very much to update on EPR right now. And I think that's it for the subcommittee.
So our transfer station will take food waste. Does that include meat, turkey bones, and?
Yep.
Really? Huh.
Yep, just not paper or wood products because they take wood chips from the forestry sort yard across the street and
Oh,
mix it in with the food waste. And the unit has been down quite a bit since it was first like started working. They've been having to do a lot of repairs, and so they're still working out like the recipe of the compost.
Mhm.
So they're not accepting anything other than just, yeah, food, organics, and then some compostable bags as long as they're like 5 gallons or less, because they don't want the larger ones because they don't break down as much or as easily.
Startup on biomass and waste to value is really complicated. They're doing a great job.
They're doing
it is
great.
challenging to get it running. I was really excited.
Yeah.
I got to drop off my first couple of buckets the other day, which was
Nice.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah, they're definitely troopers for sticking with it too. It's it doesn't sound easy. Um,
Awesome. Did any other subcommittees meet renewable energy?
Also
I'm
on me,
assuming no, and that's fine.
we did not meet. And I remember from like, I think it was 2 months ago, I remember there being a pressing need to meet. So I will need to look back at the notes as I compile them, and we'll schedule one between now and our next meeting.
Yeah, I can't remember if we were still gonna present what we had to the BOT for the 24/7 energy.
I think
we were gonna,
I think we talked about coming up with an amendment to the ordinance for 100% renewable energy for 2030, and also presenting like more about the 24/7 carbon-free energy at the same time.
Yeah, and the amendment being a proposal and the 24/7 carbon-free energy being more of an educational structure, that rings familiar with me. And I think, yeah, that also rings
Yes.
familiar with the level of priority, i.e. high. So
All right, perfect. So then sustainability coordinator update.
Yeah, so this update is in the Google Drive folder with attachments for the agendas, but the level 3 charger is still not up. There, last I heard, there were issues where every time the power went out, it like restarted or needed it to be rebooted manually, and we were talking to them to, I think, Switch about trying to get that rebooted. John, did you have something to add for that?
There's a router that's associated with it and needs to be updated firmware wise, and that may be happening anytime. It might actually be done today, but we'll see. But in theory, it'll fix the issue.
Okay. So hopefully that fixes it and we can test it with EV and see, and we'll probably give it a couple weeks to make sure that it's actually operating for an extended period of time instead of just one test. The town has a new website, so if you go to netherlandco.gov, that is our new website address. The old one, I believe, is being it's going to be redirected to netherlandco.gov this week. So you might still get, search results for the old one, which is, I think, townofnederland.colorado.gov. But we are updating the new one from now on. So that is the one you should use.
Looks good.
Thank you. Yeah, Britt and I tried to work with the team to get all those like last minute fixes, but yeah, I agree. I think they did a good job. The level 2 charger is still operating. It's had 166 sessions in September and 138 in October. Generated almost $500 this last month and the month before. And the average session is about an hour and 38 minutes charging time. So people aren't using it for too long for a level 2. But people are definitely still using it. The bag fee revenue, we have been getting consistently between $700 and $800 each quarter. Due to the fire at the Caribou Shopping Center, I believe there's 2 businesses that were giving us bag fees, but they were pretty low, so I don't think that will have a huge hit. And to date, we have about $2,265 in our bag fee fund, which we now have as its own line item in the 2026 budget. And so that can be used for zero waste education and outreach expenditures related to the bag fee or related to just zero waste things. So probably materials mostly. But that is great that funding is available for us. Already talked about zero waste subcommittee and PI. We submitted a letter of intent for the local impact accelerator grant. This was the one that I believe we discussed at the last meeting. So what ended up going on the letter of intent after talking with our basically grant representative from CC4CA, Anna, we put the ADU policies on there, and then ADU financial and technical assistance, and transportation planning designs for the projects. And then for EVs, we put the EV first procurement plan and the and doing an EV or like detailed EV conversion plan and financial analysis as a project. So for basically all of those projects, the funding involves like hiring consultants as well as for the policies. But this was just a letter of intent, so that CEO will basically give us a encourage or discourage notice by January 15th. We'll have a meeting with CEO if we are encouraged to apply, and they'll basically ask for more details about our application, and we'll kind of figure out exactly what they are wanting to fund and what they might not fund. And then we will submit a formal application if we are encouraged. And then that funding is expected to begin in, I think, sometime in Q2 of 2026. So probably April or May. And if you'd like to see a copy of the letter of intent, I can email that to you. But yeah, it's basically the ADUs and the transportation planning. We have water and wastewater treatment plant tours. The water treatment plant tour will be tomorrow from 3 to 4 p.m. Andrew Bliss, the utilities manager, will be leading that tour. If you would like to go, I have an RSVP link, or you can just let me know. But basically, go to the water treatment plant about 3 p.m. and that's when the tour will start. The wastewater treatment plant tour will be December 9th. It's also on that same RSVP link, or email me if you would like to attend. And after both of these tours, there will be town talks, which are just the gathering with town staff and board members. And I was told that from the utilities crew that they will be at the water treatment plant. Well, they'll be at the town talk after that tour to answer questions. So if you can't make the tour, but you want to talk to them, you can go to that. It will be at Alpine Brick House Kitchen, which is the new like fried chicken place. So that will be right afterwards from 4 to 6 p.m. And then there is also a BOT meeting tomorrow at 7. So it's all kind of packed in there if you plan to go to all of those things. But yeah, that's all I have.
All right, thanks, Cass.
Yep.
So the last thing then on the agenda is our goals. I sent out earlier the draft that I was working on. Cass and I met last week to do some more work on it. Let me pull it up. So I started with kind of refresher introduction of the old plan. And then I did list out the various things we've done over the years, and I could use some help with filling that in as well. I think Erica, you could help there as our sustainability coordinator for a few years, and Cass as well, whatever you can find. And then once we have like a good solid understanding of the actual goals and what we want this to look like, then I'll work on summarizing those. But starting on page 6, I have started here just different tables for some of the main things we talked about. So the priority goals being figuring out what that 24/7 carbon-free energy would look like. Not saying to achieve it or when we're going to achieve it yet, but just trying to develop that plan. Doing the energy action plan with PI that we just discussed earlier. EV fleet support, like Cass was talking about in that grant. At the very least, we can talk about the EV first fleet procurement policy. And then other things as we can. EV community support, so trying to help continue the Charge Ahead Colorado or whatever other offerings there are to help with installing more EV chargers around town. And then establishing the wetland riparian area protection ordinance, which was something that was called out in the comprehensive plan. So I'll stop there and open to feedback on everything from formatting to words to whatever, and how we want to move forward from here.
Well, Melody, you've done it again. And Cass, I think the document looks great. I need to personally just get more time to like look it over and just think about how things tie together. I think my initial question is just, for Cass, like what's the most, again, like where does the board and staff begin and end, and how can we be the most supportive for you, especially with developing a document like this? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I am not sure what that expectation is. Yeah, I guess what I have seen so far is that SAB has goals and things that you're working on, and then I am supporting those things. And then I, as staff and other staff members, have projects for the town that we bring to SAB if we need that advice, that input, such as grants or municipal operations, especially if it needs to go in front of the BOT, because having SAB's like recommendation as part of that, I think is very valuable for BOT conversations. I think if the boards become codified, then there may be more direction in there for how staff is supposed to work with the advisory boards. Yeah, I unfortunately wish I had a more clear answer for you, but I don't know that I have gotten a clear answer on that.
Yeah, that's helpful. I think, oh, it's so tough because like if we were gonna task you with developing like a sustainability plan for the town of Nutterland, that's huge. Like that would take all of your hours for at least 6 months, if it's like really rooted in the community. And so I just see that these two things, this just has to support you. I don't think it has to be the guiding direction of your work, but I think it has to make sense from staff's perspective, and the town's perspective, because we need to all be working together, so jointly in these efforts to really have the greatest impact. I think there could, in theory, be some things specific to the SAB board where you're not involved, in theory, right? Like, I don't think that's good practice, but just based on your capacity and that you are working on lots of other things. But I just want to acknowledge that, like, staff has evolved over the 5 years that Nederland has had sustainability staff, and has grown in capacity over those 5 years. And so this action plan, I think, also is an iterative kind of evolving space as a result of that. And so I don't know if it's something like from the Board of Trustees saying that all boards should work like this, because there's a very big Parks and Rec staff, right? And there's the Planning Commission is very different, and this Board of Zoning and Adjustment. This is Sustainability Advisory Board really did all this work until staff existed. And then once that first staff person was hired at 10 hours a week, it really shifted the dynamic. This board became more of an advisory than a, like, boots on the ground, let's make this stuff happen. And I guess I'm just sharing all this because I think we're in an current evolution of our goals. And I just want to acknowledge that. I think it's really important from my perspective that this, really supports you, and supports the town, while also recognizing that you're still a team of one and you're still working on many other things, And the collective goal is to move sustainability forward.
Thanks, Erica. Yeah. On part of that note, I did reference, the comprehensive plan when putting together that initial goals list, and I think our priority goals all align with that. There's the EV fleet stuff that's called out in there. There's the water protection ordinance that's called out in it. It doesn't necessarily talk about 24/7 carbon-free energy, but it does talk about, the things that we're talking about to get there, which is increasing renewable generation in town, increasing energy efficiency in homes, all that kind of stuff. So I think that what we have here does align with at least some of the projects that are already going on in town.
100%, Melody. I think you did a beautiful job combining with the comp plan, per direction, right? Like, we heard that very clearly. These had to align with Board of Trustees goals. We're all working towards the Board of Trustees goals, staff and boards alike. And again, like we've talked about, they're not in the weeds on sustainability like this board is. So they're not going to spend time on, like, yes, we should do a 24 carbon-free, goal. The 100% renewable energy campaign did not come from them. It came from this board, right? And many of the other sustainability things I think that Nederland really is out of have come.
And it came from citizens.
Yep. Citizens to this board.
Yep. And I think that there is, there are clear things that I think the sustainability coordinator does, like, doing the grant applications and working with town staff on those, working with town staff on procurement or materials or things like that as needed, just because they're in that official staff capacity and you need that official staff person to do things. And I think where we can step in is those areas that you don't need a staff member. So helping more with outreach, helping more with research, other things like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, Melody. Jonathan, I noticed you came online. Love to hear your thoughts on this.
I don't disagree with what Melody just said. I don't think there's much ambiguity about what the Sustainability Advisory Coordinator's role is. I think it's pretty clearly defined. I think we can always talk about that. That can be something that evolves and changes over time. But I think really what we're talking about right now with the proposed ordinance for alignment and codifying boards and commissions is to make sure that there's a structure that works and that advisory boards advise the board of trustees and the trustees know what's happening and how that's working, and that we know that there's a clear path forward for the goals of the SAB to support the goals of the town. As you said, they're resident driven. And we want to make sure that we have that process. So we want to make sure that the board of trustees is advising work to the SAB. And then I think, like you said, Erica, it's about making sure that experts are doing expert work, which is great. The best practice for boards and commissions is to have staff support and have those for people, preparing aims and making sure that packets and agendas are right and those kinds of things, and making sure that there's good connection to the board of trustees. And I do hope that when we have a new appointed person, that you'll have a new trustee that's working with you. But I think that the ultimate goal of the board of trustees is just to make sure that you guys are working together so that work flows and that grants happen on time and that we're working on the right goals that kind of support the right things at the right time and all of that kind of thing. And I think the work you guys are doing is largely, like you said, Erica, it's pretty tied together. I don't think there's a huge gap there. But codifying the SAB and making sure that these general processes are kind of thought about and kind of worked on, and not necessarily process improvement, but just making sure that everybody's on the same page about how it works and how it needs to work is a really good idea. And I'm really thankful that you guys are doing that. I think you guys have one of the most technical jobs in the town as a board. And I think you do a really good job of what you're doing. And so I think you've been, from my perspective, I think there's been a lot of positive intent engaging in the work that you guys are doing. So I want to thank you for that. And Cass too, you too. You guys have been doing a great job. And so I think ultimately, I don't want there to be confusion. We can meet more if we want to talk more about this, if you want to talk to me, or if you want to think about more with how we're going to connect with the board or anything like that. I'm happy to make sure that we're getting those conversations happening.
Yeah, Jonathan, I think that would be helpful. We've talked about more joint meetings with the BOT, and I think that first one we had was really helpful. They've been few and far between over the last 10 years. And you mentioned some of these, like, codifying the process and understanding where, everyone is. And I think I never had seen confusion in that space until recently. And so I think it's just interesting. I feel like SAB had been really well understood for a long time, and I'm not sure how we go back to that. And maybe it's just going back to this ordinance and updating it. That'll be helpful for sure. But if there are, like, just, maybe it's just it's another powwow, and to sit down and to say, like, if you all, just even recently, like, if the board of trustees wants to change the scorecard, like, let's have an intentional conversation about that. Let's go back and make sure everybody understands the why and the how and the when, so that we can all be on the same page having those conversations. And then I think there wouldn't be any confusion. I think the confusion is sometimes, like, at least from my limited perspective, is I think some of those details are being missed as to, like, why things are or have been done in certain ways. And I just think it could benefit all of us, because we don't want to be stagnant. We want to evolve and do things better over time. But I think there has to be a good conversation, and understanding that why. Yeah, I don't want to feed a fed horse here.
We're on the same page. I think we're 100% on the same page, and we're on the same team too. That's the other important thing. So
yeah,
nobody's trying to do anything. I think the biggest issue is that sometimes things need to evolve a little bit, and I think that's where we are on some of these processes, just to make sure that they actually are functional as we move forward, and not just dependent on one person knowing a lot of things, but that they can work long term in the future. And I think we want to make sure everybody has capacity, everybody's thinking about the right things, and we've got the team at the table. So let's keep doing that. Let's try it. Like we can keep talking with the board. You can talk with me, whatever we need to do. But I want to make sure that that's the path we follow there.
Do we want to add like, I mean, it says SAB Sustainability Action Plan, right? Like, do we want this to remain as a SAB led thing? Do we want to add in like some type of reference to the dynamic of staff and the board working together? Is that already assumed? Like, I guess I think it's a good conversation to have. And what's most helpful, you know?
It seems
really
like, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just go really quick. I think the thing is it's Netherlands is really the thing. And I think that's the thing for all of us is we're empowered to work on behalf of the town. And I don't think it needs to be, I think SAB, it makes sense to call out SAB in that way, but I think like really making it clear. That's what we do with our other plans too. And just making sure this is like our sustainability goals that, that derive from these spaces. And SAB is a part of that effort and represents the town in that way. Like kind of like Melody said, these are resident driven initiatives and we should reflect that, I think.
Yeah, so I think that the way I understood it is that this is essentially what we want to look at for the next year or so. It may call out some projects that are going to go beyond a year. But I think that what we talked about was creating a 2026 work plan for the Sustainability Advisory Board, not necessarily setting the town's sustainability goals. I think that's what the 24/7 when we go with it is. That's what the adjustment to the 2025 resolution is. Those would be, the town's sustainability goals that we might be helping to set. And then this is really what we as a group are going to work on over the next year. And I did just want to add, going back to like, how does the sustainability coordinator serve alongside the SAB and how does that work best? I think one thing to keep in mind is that we don't yet have a full-time sustainability coordinator. And so I'm not sure if it is the right time to really set that in stone with some sort of ordinance. And I know we'd all like to see a full-time sustainability coordinator, but there's also, budgetary concerns to look at. And I'm not so confident that, 7 years from now with a different board, they're going to get rid of the position if it's still just part-time. So I just want to note that as well.
And I'm not confident that there's going to be one even in a year after our 2026 funding is gone from the Boulder County Sustainability Matching Grant. So that's a very fair point. Maybe don't put it in stone if you don't know if you're going to be able to keep your sustainability coordinator, even if they're part-time.
I mean, I'm not trying to be dismal, just realistic.
I apologize if I missed that. So 2026 Sustainability Matching Grant?
This is the last year that we can use the matching grant from Boulder County to fund my position. And as far as I'm aware, I don't know where the sustainability coordinator funding is going to come from after
That's
that.
my job to
And I
figure
know
out.
that's
So I think that's the plan, is to keep that funding going.
Yep, and I think part of it is the new environmental fee or whatever that comes in the planning commission, but I know that's not a ton and that's not going to cover everything. I mean, I don't know where the board is at with a home rule municipality, but if something like that were to happen, that opens up different kind of tax revenue streams that we could look at to support it, but that's, years out. So
You could just call it the Netherlands sustainability advisory board plan or whatever. And honestly, it doesn't matter if you even call it just SAB plan. I think the goal was just to have like a work plan so we could start tying budgetary priorities to it. Was really what the board was looking for, like so that there's like not dissimilar from what you already had, but not every board, like the goal was to try to like raise the ship collectively. And so the goal is to have like some policy document that allows us to make budgetary and policy decisions based on a general plan, which I think you guys have been really advancing. I don't think that's a huge issue for you.
Well, I think we got to add another goal though, to secure funding for full-time staff. And Jonathan, I hear you, that's your position, but like we can also be very creative. We were very creative with the staff up until, it was, I think staff wrote that grant, right? Melody, it was board run for the first couple of years and then maybe went in-house, but like we can get creative. So I advocate that we add that in there for 2026. Because it's not a lot of money, right? Like it's 15,000 from Boulder County. We could find that.
I think I am optimistic we can too. I think the goal is building a full-time job. That is it full-time right away for SAB, or is it, do we have to split work? I think that's part of the question. Is there enough to do? And I think to your point, there could be potentially. So I think it's just figuring out what that looks like. And I think we just need to do that work. You know what I'm saying? Like, is it a full-time SAB job, or is it a two-hat job or something like that? And I think that's what one of the questions is: what is the work we're doing, and what is the, how do we fund that work as we move forward, and how do we fund the priorities and all those kinds of things? And so I think like that's really one of the goals that I see as critical at this point, is figuring out how that works.
Well, first thing we should do is raise that EV charger cost and put a little sign on it that says this is funding your sustainability staff in the town of Nederland. Yeah. Anybody else get a ticket recently too from Boulder County? We've been increasing their tickets, but some of that funding should go to you too, Cass. Yeah. So I appreciate this conversation. Is that appropriate, Jonathan, if we put that in there though as like a goal? I think that is the priority and has been for a long time.
I love that. I think that's what we.
As another priority goal or a secondary goal?
I would say top priority. I would say put it at the very top.
I can't imagine the times before we had staff. Cassidy, you've been doing an incredible job. And I can only hope to imagine what it would be like to have full-time support. So
just saying too, like, you're already doing grants, Cass, like adding in, a hybrid kind of grant sustainability, two hats. That just kind of popped in my head too, but I think that could be a really cool way, because incorporating sustainability into all grants the town's looking for is also an advantage too, really baking it in.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting a lot of grant experience, and have plans to go to every single farmer's market and do zero waste education and be literally the only place that you can drop your waste so that things get sorted correctly. So that will take up a lot of time, but it's going to make a huge impact, I think, on our special events. And I think there's a lot more opportunities for that type of work in Nederland. And I noticed this weekend at the Thanksgiving that people were very excited to see that there was waste sorting and that things were actually being recycled and composted correctly. Because I think there's a lot of opportunity there that gets wasted when you don't have someone who knows the ins and outs of like where to take it, what can and can't go, those sorts of things.
Cass, I really appreciate that effort, but it also is a great opportunity to delegate. See, like you could ask one of us to take a shift a season. We could lean into zero waste group,
Yeah, I can ask. We could see what people's schedules are like.
Jack, I love watching your facial expressions. Being in
I
your
think
dad's
this is the last, this is the last item on our agenda. So any more questions or thoughts?
I'll just offer an apology for being pretty sleep deprived and less sharp and with a worse memory than I will be at hopefully typically. Hopefully it gets better at some point, but yeah, just blanket apology there.
Yeah, you may not want to make that promise too soon.
I said hopefully.
Yeah. It gets better in the sense of you get used to it.
Oh, I mean, could be worse. It's been worse. Everything is fine.
It's one of the greatest joys of life.
I am overjoyed, for the record.
Well, since I only was able to send it out to you guys this morning, or this afternoon, actually, it was supposed to go out this morning and didn't. How about you guys take some more time to review it? Feel free to fill in blank spots as you see fit. And we will talk about it again next meeting and then maybe officially approve it in January.
Sounds good.
All right, and I'll do some more work on it as well. Okay. Any other items? If not, I will move that we adjourn the meeting at 8:33 p.m.
Seconded.
Seconded by Jack. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Hearing none, meeting is adjourned.
Good work, team. See you.